Squawk. It is debate time on this issue. President Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus plan on track to reach his desk for signing this week. But will the money really help the COVID recovery, or is the government putting checks in the wrong hands? That is the question of the morning. New York Congressman Tom Suozzi is here. Kevin O'Leary is here as well, chairman, of course, of O-Shares ETFs, Shark Tank co-host, and a CNBC contributor. Good morning to both of you. I think the gloves are going to come off early on this one, but I'm going to go to Kevin first because I know you're not a fan. So make the case, and then we'll give it over to Tom.
Where this bill fails is it does not recognize that a new economy is emerging. It's trying to build back what we had in 2019 and early 2020. And so much has changed. The American economy is digitized. It's more efficient. It's like a coiled spring ready to burst open as soon as people get vaccinated. So if we could just focus on what really matters here, and I will give credit to Biden and his team, he did deliver on infrastructure in terms of vaccinations. Here in Miami, where I am, the CVS is open, taking a wide range of cohort ages and vaccinating them every hour. But I would rather have seen this, and if you told me it cost $1 trillion to accelerate vaccination rates from 2 million a day to 7 million, I want to spend on that because that's the highest internal rate of return for the American economy, the taxpayer, and every individual in it. But this bill misses the mark in so many ways, so much waste. Look, I encourage every single taxpayer to just read it in a synopsis. There's plenty of it on the internet. How about $300 million to COVID animal surveillance? Last time I checked, there are no animals worried about COVID. And all kinds of money going to states that were way off broken before the COVID even hit. And then $128 billion to the teachers union? That's basically funding mediocrity. High-paid teachers should be the ones that are high performers. We can't do that under the current union situation. There's waste, waste, waste. And who pays for it? Future. It's just terrible to waste this money. I would have said give it to people that are unemployed and get these vaccinations going. The only two cohorts that matter right now. Don't fund the airlines anymore. Fund the employees of the airlines that are displaced by the fact that we simply don't know yet how many people are going back to business travel. We don't know yet how many people are actually going to work in the office. We have to let the economy stabilize before we fund it.
Respond to that. What do you say?
I don't know where Kevin's getting his talk points from, but the reality is that this plan is widely supported by the American people. Experts like Janet Yellen, our new Treasury Secretary, says it's the most important thing we can do right now. And you talk about giving money to the unemployed. This does give money to the unemployed, about $250 billion to the unemployed, about $350 billion to state and local governments that have been whacked, like my state of New York, that had lost so much in sales tax revenue because we got crushed so badly. We had refrigerator trucks full of bodies in our streets back in March and April of last year. $424 billion in $1,400 checks to families. Now, listen, I would have liked some of those to be more targeted than they were, but that's going to keep the economy booming. And we have to look at how cruelly uneven this pandemic has been. Some people are unscathed. Some people are working remotely. They're making money. Wall Street's going up. Online retail's doing great. And other businesses have been wiped out. 25% of the people who make under $40,000 a year are unemployed. So many people are just hanging on. If you saw 60 Minutes this weekend, it was unbelievable. People that are living in homeless shelters that have never been anything near like that before, who worked 2 or 3 jobs and now just can't get back to work because so many businesses have been closed. There is a new economy. Kevin's right about that. We're going to have to be ready for that. But we need to get through this very difficult time. And as the president said, we need to build back better. Most economists, like 90% of them, say the biggest mistake we can make right now is not spending enough money. And I believe that this is going to be great for our economy. And we'll have to see what the results are. But economics today are very different than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. We know what to do. The Fed has tools. The government has tools to deal with inflation. This is a great plan to build back better, to help people that are in trouble, including reopening schools. Not for the teachers' unions. It's to reopen schools and put kids back into schools in safe environments so they can learn and not be disadvantaged.
Kevin, help me with this. I don't disagree with you on the idea of wanting to do this more precisely. I think everybody wishes that you could actually, with like a laser beam, just get the money to the most vulnerable people. But if I told you that the system is not created in a way that allows for that, Is this an acceptable way to do it?
No.
If you can't do it in the most precise way that I know we all wish.
Andrew, the average salary in America, $52,000 to $60,000, depending on region. Why are we sending gainfully employed people checks? Why in the world would you ever do that when there's people unemployed that are really hurting? Give them more money. Don't fund people that are already employed. This economy is probably going to run at a 7 to 8% GDP, and we're sprinkling money out of a helicopter down to people that are already employed. That's too blunt an instrument. It's way too wasteful. And the risk of inflation becomes a big factor. That hurts everybody. You just can't do this again. We did this already in the first PPP program, which I now think was 60% wasted. I don't want to do it again. Money to people that are unemployed, money for the logistics of vaccinations, that's it. The economy is going to come back screaming. It doesn't need any more stimulus, please. And by the way, there's tons of infrastructure spending in here. Amtrak, another $1.5 billion. They haven't even spent the first $1 billion. Why is that in this bill anyways? What does that have to do with COVID? There's so much non-COVID related stimulus in this. It's a horrible, horrible piece of legislation. And I think every American should read it. It's just full of waste.
I think
Congressman, do you accept there's waste in there?
There's some waste. There's some waste in there. There's no question there's some waste in there.
But when you say some waste, you think it's like 1.9 trillion, so you think there's like $100 billion, which I know, by the way, anything with a billion is a lot of money. Is it $100 billion of waste? Is it $500 billion of waste? What do you think?
It's less than $100 billion in waste, far less than $100 billion. It's a false narrative that there's waste throughout this bill. Now, I'll agree with Kevin. I would love to have seen this $1,400 stimulus checks targeted more towards people and less money going to people that are actually working right now. But you know what? We couldn't get that. I can't get everything I want. You've got to build a whole coalition of people together. And Janet Yellen, who I'll take her opinion more than the Canadian reality TV star, says we're not going to have inflation because we have the controls in place that we can deal with inflation. We haven't had inflation in this country for such a long time because we know how to deal with it now. So I don't think we're going to have horrific inflation.
Wait a second. This Canadian TV star, by the way, pays lots of taxes here, has his children that can vote, and is on his way to becoming an American citizen, hopefully, shortly. So I can vote, and I can't wait to do that.
I'd like to be at the ceremony and congratulate you on that, Kevin. That's a very wonderful thing, and I enjoy watching you on television. This is a very serious time in our nation's history. Building a coalition of people that's widely supported by the United States American people. The people are saying, 80% of the people are saying they like this plan. It's going to pass. It's going to happen today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, and it's going to have a really positive impact on tremendous amounts of people that are hurting. As I said before, the uneven impacts of this pandemic are just cruel because so many people are unscathed, but other people lost family members. I lost my father-in-law. He was 92 years old. He got the coronavirus. He died within 36 hours. So many people have lost their jobs and can't go back to work. So many mom and pop businesses have gone under. You mentioned the airline industry before. Airline, Amtrak, those are...
I respect that you serve the country, and I really respect what you do. There's no question. But it doesn't give you a license to waste money. I want to put up my hand and say, I'm a taxpayer. I wish you had fought harder to take out all the pork, because that's what it is. And if enough of you had done that, you would have represented the American people and the people that are unemployed even better than this. This is so wasteful.
Kevin, that's a false narrative that this is full of a lot of pork. That's just completely... I told you before, there's $400 billion for checks. There's $350 billion for state and local aid. There's $250 billion for unemployment. There's $219 billion for child care and earned income tax credit. There's $178 billion for schools. There's $176 billion for vaccines and testing. There's $100 billion for farms and small businesses. There's $47 billion for FEMA. There's $40 billion for renters. There's $25 billion. There's so many things that are important things, comprehensive, that need to be done.
And there's $135 million plus another $300 for museums. What do museums have to do with COVID? Why are we giving money to museums in this bill? What's the point?
A lot of things have been wiped out in this process, and we don't want to lose our cultural institutions because they can't have everybody in the door. We don't want to lose the central fabric of our society of why we're alive. We want our museums. We want our small restaurants. We want our libraries. We want our entertainment industry back.
Congressman,
You know,
Kevin,
all you
I
have
wanna
to do is
thank you.
vaccinate people. They can go to
Wanna
museums.
thank
This
you
is nuts.
both for the debate. We do need to get people vaccinated, but we do need to support our museums in the same way that we're trying to support our small businesses. It is, of course, a larger debate, and we will see where all of this plays out over time. Thank you to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You bet. Talk to you guys soon.
When we
Becky?
come back,